What if I told you that the One Piece reader request cover pages were actually canon to the story? Would you believe me? No? That's fair. But, just for a moment, let's pretend that they were. How would that even work? In today's video, let me entertain the idea of how these would not only fit within the canon, but even potentially spoil the end of One Piece. For context, in the One Piece manga, at the beginning of each chapter, there is often what is called a cover page. These cover pages appear in a variety of different ways. They could be anything from beautiful color spreads to full-on canon side stories that show what certain characters are up to or where they have ended up. There was also a type of cover page called animal theater that existed during the first half of the manga. These pages would depict random drawings of the Straw Hat crew interacting with various animals. Oda had stated that he enjoys drawing animals, so I suppose he took the opportunity to begin chapters with fun but seemingly random scenes. After the time skip within the story, Animal Theater had its last appearance in chapter 597 and was replaced with a new type of cover page called reader requests. Fans of the series would be able to mail in a request to Oda directly of a character and scenario that they would like to see. These began appearing in chapter 599, with the first one depicting Luffy counting sheep and falling asleep while the sheep ate his food. It's a silly scenario, and this tone will continue to carry on moving forward. So now that we've established what the reader requests are, I'd like to propose this fun idea. What if these reader request cover pages actually took place within the canon of the story? Looking through some of these, one may be inclined to argue that it would make no sense for these events of characters interacting with animals to be happening during the actual events of the manga. But here's the idea. These events would not take place during the events of the story. They would all actually take place after the story has ended. Now that might sound absurd at first, but hear me out. There are many popular theories of how the story of One Piece will end. Most of them involve the Red Line being destroyed and creating the All Blue, where everyone can freely sail between the different oceans. Some theories even toy with the idea of the story ending with a huge party that the whole world would be involved in. While I'm not going to go into detail about those types of theories today, mainly because I imagine most of you have probably heard these theories by now, but I wanted to establish the idea that the people of the One Piece world would be able to live freely and coexist with each other by the end of One Piece. So, what if these reader requests were scenarios that existed during this time of peace and freedom? These pages do invoke a sense of fun, silly, slice-of-life moments. Not a single one of these pages show us a scenario that depicts any real struggle or drama. The closest you can probably get to that is the reader request in chapter 672, where Zoro and Sanji are fighting and competing in a race while carrying a tortoise and a hare. But as you know, these two characters do have a mutual care and respect for each other, regardless of how often they bicker. There are even some cover pages that show some of the villains partaking in seemingly random scenarios that one wouldn't normally think they would see these characters in. Such examples include Crocodile holding an umbrella over a small pup in chapter 860, or even in a more recent chapter like 1083, where Doflamingo, of all characters, offering his coat to a baby chick that fell from its nest. Could you ever imagine these kinds of characters doing something like this? It could be a big flaw in this theory. Or maybe it's not so far-fetched as it may seem. While at this point we don't know how the series will end, most speculate that bringing down the Red Line would also involve bringing down the world government. Lots of mysteries will be solved, lots of plot twists will happen, and lots of characters may end up uniting and fighting for the same cause. Even potentially some unlikely characters like Crocodile and Doflamingo to have a change of heart and fight on the side that opposes Imu and the Gorosei. A combination of pirates, marines, revolutionaries, cross-guild, etc. I may be getting a little carried away here, but a scenario like this could be the reason why we find a variety of characters in these peaceful scenarios. After all, it is said that Oda has had both the beginning and end of his story planned out from the get-go. Also, think about this. How wild of an idea would it be for Oda to implement this system where he can involve his fans to unintentionally create these canon scenarios and further expand on the world of One Piece, but just after the story ends? It's also interesting to note that these reader requests only started taking place right after the time skip had taken place. In a way, Oda established the expectation of non-canon cover pages with the existence of Animal Theater, which were scenarios that he had come up with himself. And thinking about it now, before Oda knew that One Piece would end up going on longer than he imagined, Animal Theater could very well have been foreshadowing scenarios of the Straw Hat crew in a post-story setting where no time skip is involved. Now, I mentioned at the beginning of this video that not only would the reader requests be canon to the story, but they would also spoil the end. So I'd like to propose an even bigger idea. What if all the characters that are featured in the reader requests are characters that survive to see the world enter a new dawn of peace and freedom? This idea intrigued me, so I looked through every single reader request up to the current chapter at the time this video was made, which would be chapter 1088, and made a list of every character that has made an appearance. Some characters have multiple features, but for the sake of time, I will only showcase just one page for each character. We have all the Straw Hat Pirates, the whole crew, Vivi and Karu, Kuzan and Camel, Law, Mihawk, Perona, Heraclesen, I don't know how to say his name, Dadan, Shanks, Leo, Mancherry. This next one's kind of weird. Pinocchio. Yeah, this might be a slight flaw in the theory here. Doflamingo, Smoker, Tashigi, Mocha and the Kids, Boa Hancock, Hancock's sisters, Boa Sandersonia and Boa Marigold, Sabo, Cavendish, Beppo, Kuma, Sugar, Rebecca, Kiros, King Riku, the Tontadas, Bartolomeu, Crocodile, Nekomamushi, Rayleigh, Koala, the Kung Fu Dugongs, Santomaru, Garp, Arouge, Cracker, Zeus, Caesar, Eneru, Wanzi, Montdor, Kinemon, Otsuru, Blackbeard, Rob Lucci, Hattori, Reiju, Katakuri, Pudding, Kid, Senor Pink, Buggy, Ulti and Page 1, Denjiro, Jewelry Bonnie, Yamato, Prometheus, Kawamatsu, Hiyori. Sheesh, that's a lot of characters. There's one scenario that I would like to specifically point out that helps support the idea of these being canon. Of course, I'm talking about the reader request in chapter 1021, Senor Pink and Frankie having drinks at a leopard's bar. We all know about the tragic and impactful backstory for Senor Pink. We also know that when Frankie defeated Senor Pink, he said, "If we should ever cross paths again, let's share some drinks and you can tell me about the woman named Russian." One might think that since this dialogue happened in the story, it would set up a scenario in the future where they actually have a drink together. But here it is, taking place in a quote-unquote non-canon cover page. I have heard that Oda does read every letter and request he receives, even if he doesn't use every idea given to him. That means he picks and chooses which reader requests to make into a cover page. By extension, Oda could pick requests that involve characters that he knows will survive to the end of One Piece. But I don't know about that for sure. Now, there is another big flaw in this theory. I actually omitted a handful of characters to put in a separate list to showcase. See if you can find the correlation between these group of characters. Ace, Whitebeard, Corazon, Roger. Yeah, you see the problem here? All of these characters are deceased. These characters could not possibly exist in the post-story era of Freedom and Peace. So, I guess this theory is a bust. Or is it? Well, at the very least, I'm going to make one quick attempt at theorizing how even the deceased characters can enjoy this slice of life action. For that, I looked toward two specific characters, Brook and Big Mom. Both of these characters have devil fruit abilities that work with souls, which confirms the existence of souls within the story. Brook even mentions that he returned from the land of the dead due to his devil fruit. This confirms that both souls and the land of the dead exist in this world. Now, there are plenty of theories out there about the Land of the Dead. There's a theory that YouTuber Ohara made about Bink Sake. In this video, he talks about how Laugh Tale might actually be the Land of the Dead, and that in order to reach it, the Straw Hats may have to enter and exit at a specific time, like during dusk and at dawn. Well, if the living are able to enter the Land of the Dead, what if the dead are able to enter the Land of the Living, even if it's only for a certain amount of time? In this way, deceased characters that are shown within the reader request covers can actually be a thing, especially the covers where we see current living and dead characters interacting. Now, there is another flaw in this theory. There are a few scenes of characters when they were kids, like Buggy and Shanks, as well as Luffy, Ace, and Sabo. Even page 1 in this cover page is stated to be a kid. And to be honest, I don't have a good idea of how this would work with the theory, so this theory might be a bust in the end. Anyways, I know this theory was a bit of a stretch, but I had a lot of fun coming up with this theory and sharing it with you. Do you think the reader request cover pages could be canon? Comment below and let me know. This video is the beginning of my journey to becoming a One Piece YouTuber, and I have a lot of cool ideas. If you'd like to see more of what I've got planned, consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks for watching, I'm JonRossy, and I leave you with a dawn.